Hello and welcome everyone to the Wednesday, July 17th edition of the Biweekly SIG Contributor Experience meeting. As a reminder, as usual, we do operate under a code of conduct which essentially says to be respectful of your fellow speakers and attendees and generally be excellent to each other. We like to offer the opportunity here at the beginning of the meeting for folks to introduce themselves if they would like to, totally optional. I will kick things off. I'm Caslin Fields, and I'm one of the co-chairs of the Special Interest Group for Contributor Experience. Our goal in this Special Interest Group is to deal with all sorts of things relating to the experience of being a contributor. That includes things like GitHub, some mentoring stuff, contributor events like the Contributor Summit, and several other things, which we will go over today as we go over the list of our sub-projects and any updates in them. Would anyone else like to introduce themselves?
Sylvester Carolan, new to the group. Well, relatively new, I think 5 times now, at least. Looking to contribute where I can. Still kind of learning the ropes, but I'm getting there.
Welcome, welcome. Anyone else? Totally optional.
Hello everyone, this is Arvind. I'm a part of the SIG ContribEx comms project. I'm a student and developer from India and glad to be here amongst everyone. So, yeah.
Welcome, welcome. Anyone else?
Well, since there's only a couple of us left. Hi, I'm Noah. I'm a long-time listener, not first-time caller. I am easily summoned by saying the phrase non-code. I run the non-code project for everybody everywhere. And I am in the process of dropping everything that's on my plate because I'm trying to move to Europe.
I didn't know that. Exciting.
Yeah.
All right. Anyone else? Or we'll move into the agenda. All right, we'll move into the agenda then. Feel free to interrupt at any time. This is a casual call, and we're happy to chat. Our agenda is basically going over updates from our sub-projects. I'm adding a note for later. But our first item on the agenda is events. We don't have either of our leads of the Contributor Summit on today. I could talk about it, but Josh is also a lead in that. So which of us would like to go?
What for the
Contributor Summit?
yeah. Not really a lot of changes from last meeting. Right now it's just very early out. We've been trying to get people to I suggest to propose sessions. But folks are not really making their plans for Contributor Summit this far out. So that's about it. And then just trying to take care of stuff like swag and documentation while things are slow.
Yeah. It's a very long cycle this time, which is interesting after our cycle for Paris was extremely short.
Yeah, well, the thing was that, like, for Paris, nobody started on it until the beginning of the year.
Yeah, because holidays.
Because holidays, yeah.
But
Something
even if
to
they
think
had,
about
it's shorter than usual.
for next year's European one that might want to see if we can select a summit team at least before the end of the year. And that way they can get like started rolling at the second week of January. Because picking, putting together a summit team takes a while.
Yeah. And I think next year EU is London, which I think is in April.
Mm-hmm.
Is it mid-April? Can't remember right now. QCon EU 2024. Yeah, that's one takeaway that I had from the Contributor Summit meeting this week as well was we're trying to get folks to register and submit CFPs, but it's a little early.
London is first week of April.
First week of April. Okay. Thought it might be. Thank you. Yeah,
So
so a
wet,
little bit.
probably.
Fair point. Seattle-esque.
Yeah, we should think about, well, umbrellas would probably be a little too expensive as swag.
Maybe. I don't know. I think
Rain hats?
Maybe not.
we'll
Bowler
see.
hats for everyone.
All right.
I may be back for that. Since I'm planning to move to Europe, I may be back to help run, which I'm obviously not involved in this one.
That would be very nice because it is good to have leads from Europe for Europe.
Yeah.
Cool. Any other questions or comments about the contributor summit? Things are rolling along. We have lots of reminders for folks on the comms list, so we'll try to make sure that folks stay informed. Any questions or comments? Cool. Let's move on then to mentoring. We have both Sylvester and Josh here.
I've been slacking on picking that up, so I need to get going on that. I did reach out to you, Josh, during the week, right? So I aim to kind of pick that up again this week. So I'm going to pick that up, look at the notes you sent me before. I guess I just need to reach out to the team leads on this, on the different SIG groups. Just look for mentoring opportunities. That's the ask.
What I'd say is that you want to pick one mentoring program to start with.
Okay.
Because otherwise it becomes too much work and you end up not getting anything done. So you want to pick one mentoring program to start with, and focus on that. Whether that's one of the external mentoring programs, although right now is not the time to work on, say, Google Summer Code, or whether it's one of the internal mentoring programs like group mentoring.
Sorry, like what? What was that one?
Group mentoring.
Oh, group mentoring, yeah.
Yeah. Or if you were technically inclined, even trying to bring back the one-on-one hour, which actually kind of crashed around. We lost our scheduling platform for that and had not been able to replace it.
I never heard of that. One-on-one hour. Okay.
Yeah, the one-on-one hour, the idea that was for regular contributors, or people who have like open PRs and stuff. Often it can make a huge difference for them just to get 1 hour with a SIG lead.
Okay.
And if we make it a regular thing for SIG leads and other approvers to schedule that, then it helps things get moving. Do you follow me?
Yeah,
and without putting too much of a demand on the SIG lead's time.
Okay.
And like I said, that one could be either really easy or really hard depending on what the technical situation still is. I know the CNCF now has an enterprise license for what is the name of that scheduling tool? The one where random people can pick open time slots for you.
Calendly or something? Is that it?
What?
Calendly?
Calendly, yeah. But I don't know if it'll really work for this.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's one. Group mentoring is when a SIG will look around at its regular contributors and try to level them up as a group. Trying to get them to reviewer approver status.
Okay.
SIGs do that, maybe once a year. We haven't really had anybody in the ContribEx side pushing it, and so it hasn't happened that often for that many SIGs lately.
So the ask for me, right, is to reach out, pick one of these.
Yeah, pick one of those and pick one of those, figure out what's missing in terms of being able to just tell SIG leads, hey, I want to talk to you about doing this. And then, and then start reaching out basically one SIG at a time.
Okay.
and that's why I said take one program, right? Because it's, if you're trying to do multiple programs with multiple SIGs, it's way too much.
Right. So, and this gets communicated out to, how does the communication go out to people? So let's say, for example, I'm part of the Minikube group as well, right?
Mhm.
So I'm contributing on
Oh
there.
yeah,
And I know them
sub-projects
pretty
too.
well.
You can also do sub-projects. It's not limited to SIGs.
Right. So if I reach out, because I know they're pretty well, so if I kind of speak to them and say, look, can we organize something like this? Then what would be the next steps? Come back to you guys and say, yes, we've got this all set up. Let's publish it out. Is that right? Is that how it would go?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And try to do as much as you can, and where you get stuck, come back to me and I'll try to figure out what's missing.
Okay.
Um,
Sounds doable.
And we'll try to fill in what's missing so that it's a little bit more turnkey.
So if I'm a contributor and I want to know which mentorships are available, how do I find that out?
Well, some things like the group mentorings has a schedule. It's an event, right? So a sub-project or a SIG says, hey, we're doing a group mentoring cohort. You can find some of these in dev if you look back in history. We're doing a group mentoring cohort. It's going to run over this time period. Sign up here if you're interested. And then the leads will pick people based on their contribution history, because like if you're trying to get people to approver status, it doesn't make any sense to include somebody who's only submitted one PR ever.
Right.
So the idea of the one-on-one hour is that it was sort of continuous, right? Is that leads would periodically update their schedules and their availability, and anybody who is a contributor to that SIG could ask for an hour. And of course, if the person's not actually a contributor, the lead can turn it down. Because it's not meant to be a time for them to answer, how do I contribute?
Right.
And the one other thing, and this would involve working with the CNCF wide mentoring group a little bit. The one other sort of big understaffed task that we've talked about is organizing the collection of potential entry-level mentorship projects. So these are projects that would be suitable for LFX, Google Summer of Code, and Outreachy. Because if each SIG and sub project, or not all of them, but if a bunch of SIGs and sub projects already had defined projects that they would like to have a mentee for sitting in a repository somewhere, then it makes it very easy to put together Kubernetes proposal for one of these programs.
Okay.
Because like right now, what happens for LFX is Nate from the CNCF goes around and pesters everybody from a whole bunch of groups and tries to get them to submit things before the deadline.
Is that your contact, Nate? Is it Nate?
So yeah, so Nate is in charge. He's a CNCF staff member, and he's in charge of mentoring programs for the CNCF in general, and in practice that ends up being mostly LFX.
Okay.
Because LFX is actually owned by the Linux Foundation, and so the staff
Yeah.
need to run the program as well as getting people into it. And all of these things that we're talking about are things that other projects in the CNCF, want to do, ought to be doing, etc. So
it sounds like I should reach out to him anyway, right? And just say, hello, I'm Sylvester.
Yeah, and the next CNCF level mentoring meeting is happening next month, where they already had the one for this month, a third Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific. All the CNCF contributor meetings happen at 10 a.m. Pacific on Thursdays, and it rotates what the topic is. But like I said, I was just giving you the outline of all of the sort
Yeah,
of
that's great.
major to-dos there. So you can, and like I said, pick one thing, right? Because if you try to do everything at once, you'll be stretched too thin and you won't actually get anything done, right?
Right.
Whereas getting one program operating more regularly would be a huge benefit to Kubernetes, regardless of which program it is.
Right. Got it. Thank you, Josh. That's all really
Yeah.
helpful information.
To come back to Sylvester's question, it sounds like none of these styles of mentoring that we have traditionally done have the audience of any contributor can sign up for it, really, except for the external mentoring programs, which we don't fully control.
Yeah, well, it depends, right? Because sometimes group mentoring is group mentoring is
Anyone?
leveling up, but it can be any level, if you follow me.
Mm-hmm.
So depending on where the project is, because like when we did group mentoring for etcd, given where our people were, we were looking at, the first one was initially, let's find a bunch of people who have made a few contributions and try to level them up to like reviewer qualification. So like the two internal ones, like group mentoring 1-on-1 hour, you know, if we ever do SIG lead mentoring again, you know, those have, it specifically expect you to have some contribution status already, like have contributed. And with group mentoring, it depends on what level they're targeting for the group, right? If they're looking to get approvers, then they're looking for people who've already been regular contributors. And yeah, and the external mentoring programs each have their own specific qualifications. What we don't have is a mentoring program for, hey, I want to contribute to Kubernetes and I've never done anything before. That's when we direct people to the self-paced online tutorial and say start there.
We do that twice a year at KubeCon in the speed mentoring programs, but that's a one-time thing. That's not regularly occurring.
I thought speed mentoring was just matching people up with SIGs.
So it can go a couple of different ways because there's a bunch of different topics that happen there. Some people come in looking for like career advice, and some people looking for, hey, I want to build meetups in my community. But some people are coming in saying, hey, I want to get involved, and I kind of have an idea of what I want to do, but I don't really know how to get involved. And we're like, oh, go across the room and go talk to, hey, the next table over is Jordan. Go talk to him. You know. That happens as well.
It's not really contributor focused in my experience with that group. It's like whatever mentoring.
It is whatever mentoring, but there is one of the categories is contribution.
But not specifically to Kubernetes either, necessarily.
Depends
on
true.
who's there.
That's true as well. That's true as well.
You see, the thing I'm having difficulty with is if you're the only people, given what you just described, right, for the internal mentorship programs, the only people who are going to know about it are the people who are already contributing to that program. So, for example, on Minikube, I know there aren't many people go regularly to the Minikube meetings and participate in it. So that would be the audience, you know, given what you described for that mentorship program, which it's only 4 people.
Well, it wouldn't be just the meetings, right? Because the other thing that you would do is you would look at who's made contributions to Minikube, and try to get in touch with them and post something on Kubernetes Dev. And part of it, like I said, is this is why the subproject or SIG needs to start with where they are, right? Because if you look at Minikube and you say, hey, we have 4 people attending the meetings, those 4 people are the only regular contributors. So where we are is we need to add new regular contributors.
Right.
Then in that case, what you do is you reach out to the greater Kubernetes committee and say, hey, we're going to do group mentoring, and this group mentoring is for people to contribute to Minikube at all, right?
Yeah.
You know, whereas like later on for like when we did our second one for etcd, right, we were like, hey, we have a bunch of people who, you know, submit a couple PRs a year, but what we really, really need is approvers to take some of the workload off our existing approvers. And so in that case, we said, hey, you know, this is really only open for people who are already proven contributors to etcd or some related technology.
Right.
Because you need to already know how
Have-
the code generally works and know how to,
Right.
you know, and that's why they sort of pick where they are, right? You know, where is it that you need to start on the contributor pyramid?
Makes sense. Yep. Got it. Thank you. Thanks, Josh.
And for that matter, you would actually do slightly different things for the group mentoring depending on where you were targeting, right? Because if you're targeting early level contributors, then what you want to do is do some online tutorials and Q&A sessions and maybe mark up a bunch of help wanted issues. Whereas if you're doing approvers, you start out with a couple of, you know, online things about where you look at from approving, and then whoever's running the cohort would then farm out a bunch of PRs and assign them to the different mentees, right? And say, hey, you're going to review this.
Be very different. Yeah, that makes sense.
So yeah.
Great. Thank you.
So yeah, like I said, pick something. Kind of sounds like you're tending towards group mentorship, but that's up to you.
Well, it'd be a good place for me to start because I know that group. So yeah.
Yep. And for that matter, it also, the nice thing about group mentorship is it snowballs a bit, because one of the things that happens is if a couple of sub projects announce, hey, we're doing, you know, a mentorship cohort for this, other SIGs start saying, oh, right, we haven't done one of those in a year and a half. We should do one.
Right. Great.
Okay.
You're a mine of information, Josh. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I feel guilty about this because we started all of these programs when we basically had five regular ContribEx contributors running them all. And now we kind of have me and occasionally Noah. And as a result, most of them have kind of fallen by the wayside.
Okay. Sounds like we need a mentorship program for this group.
Yes, we need more ContribEx contributors. And welcome to the ContribEx mentorship program, Sylvester. So
yes, thank you.
I love it.
Hey, Sandeep.
Welcome. All right. So
hello,
go ahead.
hello. Sorry, I was catching up on the transcript. Hello. Yeah, so I was looking at the notes and also I was looking at the transcript, both.
What?
Oh, I think you're having trouble with your sound.
Oh, there you are. Hello.
Hi, hello.
Well, welcome. So thank you very much for the discussion on mentoring. I'm excited to see that kind of moving. Any questions, comments from folks about mentoring? I think the key thing here is, in order to do work, there have to be people who will do the work. It's kind of the key with mentoring or anything, really. I will go ahead and voice a dangerous idea that is on my mind from what you all were talking about. We used to have new contributor workshops at KubeCons. We recently created the new contributor channel in Slack.
Mhm.
We have the async contributor workshop content. Still, I think the most common thing that I've seen in the new contributor channel in Slack is someone asking a question and someone saying, have you read the docs that are at the top of this page? And everyone says no. I'm wondering if it would be helpful to run like a monthly new contributor orientation meeting to say, hey, welcome to the Kubernetes community. Here's how the structure of the program works. Where you contribute depends on what you want to learn. Here are the docs to read. Go do that. And here's a little bit of Q&A time. We'd have to have folks who would want to run that, but that is something that is on my mind from what you all were talking about.
I agree with this point because there's this meeting of SIG docs, new contributors meet and greet. A few of them I've attended as well. And most of the contributors there come there thinking that this is the meeting for new contributors for the overall Kubernetes community. But then Sriram has to remind them time and again that this meeting is only for the SIG docs. So for contributors looking to get involved with specifically SIG docs and then solving doubts regarding to that. But mostly new contributors come asking questions like how to get involved with the Kubernetes community or how do I make my first PR to the Kubernetes community and things like that. So starting this initiative would be really helpful for new folks, I guess.
Yeah, I think the issue with it is that it's very time consuming and it's going to be the same thing over and over again for whoever runs it. So I'm imagining if I ran it, I would have like a slide deck of here are the things that I need to cover, and I would cover the same things every month, which seems like it should just be a recording so that it doesn't take as much of some leaders' time that they could be spending burning down their triage backlog or something. But people aren't going to watch it if it's recorded, so doing it live will be more effective. So it depends on someone's willingness to give the same content over and over again and answer the same questions over and over again.
Plus 30 minutes of presentation with 30 minutes of Q&A is probably a lot better than an hour-long presentation.
I would think it would only be like a 30-minute thing. Like, here's the basic content. You need to go read the docs. In the last like 5 to 10 minutes, ask me any questions that you have. We'll do this again next month.
Didn't you could do something along those lines, but call it like we have Work Tech Tuesdays, and it's like a news type of show, right? So you could have contributor show once a month, and as part of that contributor show, highlight some stuff that's been done, and then have another section to kind of make it a bit different every month. That's a lot of work to do all that. Yeah.
That would be a lot of work.
Yeah.
I'd rather do the same thing over and over again for 30 minutes.
Right. I mean, the other when I kind of try to get into Kubernetes, and I didn't know where to start, and I looked at all the documentation, and I struggled for a while. And and I read somewhere, let's just go to the meetings. And I think and I noticed you gave a talk with Santos Keslin on the way you can get trapped by looking for a PR to do. And that's exactly right. I've seen so many people do that. And just by going to the meetings, that's the way to really get involved, in the community, and you get it from there. So to me, that was the big turning point, and I'm sure there's a lot of people like that too. Just go to the meetings and discuss with people.
I agree. I think I would kind of like to try it, but Sandeep, you have a question.
Yes. I was just thinking that, Kathleen, to extend your idea, maybe we could actually have like a one-page getting started document. So there is a getting started guide, but apparently it has multiple pages and it talks about Git and everything. While in this case, what it would be like what is a SIG, like a one-line description of pretty much everything. So like a very short getting started document, not a long one, but make it as brief as possible. So like people know like what is a country where to go, or like what is a SIG doc. Okay. So basically one getting started document that has multiple branches and says, if you want to do this, go there. If you want to do this, go there. this is that meeting, this is how you contribute like that, probably.
The problem with new contributor documentation is it depends. Because if your goal in getting involved with the Kubernetes community is to learn to code, you're going to need to find somewhere in the community that you can do that. Personally, I don't know where that is. If your goal in the Kubernetes community is to network, then maybe you should go to meetings. If your goal in the Kubernetes community is to upgrade your resume, the question is what on your resume needs to be upgraded? Which part of the Kubernetes community would most effectively achieve that for you? So it's very difficult to create documentation that suits every circumstance in which people will actually read. So we have a ton of new contributor documentation all over the place in order to fit all of these different potential use cases. And so I would not be surprised if there is something like what you're saying, like someone has probably attempted this before of here is the single pager doc, how to get started with insert group here. But I don't know where they are now, and that's probably what would happen with any new doc that was created too. It would probably be interesting for a little while, and then people would lose it, and then it would go.
Well,
That's my guess.
Okay, Kathleen. Yeah. I just
yeah,
joked.
no. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so the thing, Kathleen, I agree with what you said. Like, if my goal is to network, I would go there. If my goal is to write code, goal is to upgrade resume. But I'll tell you one thing. Most of the new contributors, they don't come with a goal. They don't even know what to do. So they are like, just get me started. Anything, I just want to be a part of open source contribution. Just get me started in anywhere. What's the easiest way? So basically, if there is something document like that, that would help like a lot of people. Because sometimes you don't know what is your goal. Only when you jump in, then you realize what you want to do, what is your goal.
Josh, go ahead.
Yeah, well, no, I'm also seeing kind of what he means about, because the thing is, if you actually look at the base page for the new contributor course, it's not set up as branching or anything.
It's true.
It's set up with the assumption that you're going to go through the whole thing serially, which, say, for example, if you're a PM or intending to just contribute documentation, it means that you get blocked by, say, Section 7. I would say, given what you're talking about with the whole sets of different needs and that sort of thing, it would actually be useful to have something up here that has sort of paths, right? Depending on what you're doing. Because the other thing is, one of the things we get into is people who are new to Kubernetes, but not new to programming in Go, right? And they really need to be directed to straight to Section 8 and say, hey, here's the list of, SIGs and what portions of the project they're responsible for and stuff, and pick what you're interested in. So it does sound like we could really use a paths document, if you follow me, that address these sort of different kinds of new contributors. So
I'm not sure exactly what that looks like. If it,
oh, it's gonna be hard to write.
Yeah. It'd be very difficult.
Hopefully maybe we can pick up a grad student somewhere who has advanced educational theory about path-based learning and get them to tackle it.
I feel like we should all, those of us who've done it so many times, should sit down and just individually write down what we've done and then have somebody come and merge it all together.
I think I'd rather run the meeting for several months and then turn that meeting into a doc.
Yeah, I mean that would be the other thing is the meeting would help inform you there.
Exactly.
And I always look at these tasks. Anytime I can come up with a discrete task, let's write a help wanted and see if a new person can work on it, right? Because this is the sort of thing where if one of us gave an outline to somebody who had background in online learning, but wasn't necessarily a Kubernetes contributor, they might be able to tackle it. So I think discrete tasks are great opportunities to recruit a new contributor. So, and that sounds like a good help wanted.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, if somebody complains that we don't have path-based learning, I'll say, yes, we're aware of this. Let me show you the help wanted.
I believe Sandeep just said that.
Yeah. Yep. Well, but he was pointing out, we don't even have the help wanted right now, so we can fix that part.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. It's a good idea, Sandeep, and we should try to figure it out. It will be challenging in a variety of ways. We acknowledge.
Yep. Yeah, because the other thing that'll happen is when you try to construct the paths is you'll discover that there are some paths that we don't currently have new contributor documentation for. And you'll also hear that through the Q&A with the sessions as well. So where it's like, hey, we have this big missing document, so we need to write another help wanted.
It's important work that begets more work.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not going to, like the first one, the path thing is going to be, because we actually did that for the etcd documentation. And it got complicated enough that version of the documentation has yet to be deployed.
Because that's what I see happen over and over.
We had an LFX intern and they ran out the clock before they finished doing all their PRs. And then they were going to continue working on it even while they were in grad school, but then they had a bunch of personal issues. So
every attempt I see at a simple one-pager, this is how you do X doc, never ends up that way. It always ends up being like a 10-page document because you try to incorporate everything and then trying to figure out how to bring it back down to something easily digestible is really challenging.
Well, I was thinking more that this is just a path to say, hey, are you new to coding in Go? Here's the lessons that you're going to need, including pointing them to some external stuff, right? Because we're not teaching people how to write Go. Or are you only going to work on docs, right? Then these are the lessons that you need, and you don't need these other lessons, right? Or are you already an experienced programmer and have worked on other open source projects and you're just new to Kubernetes? Well, then you want to go straight to chapter 8, right? So that's sort of basically a role-based guide to the contributor documentation, without being the actual documentation. Say, hey, we have this library of 11 lessons, right, already, plus external materials that we know about, and we're just going to point you to them based on who you are.
Exactly, this is what I was sort of telling. Like Castian, I agree that whenever you try to write a one page, it always ends up being a 10 page. So which is why we can just sort of create a one page with a pointer to 10, 20 or many other pages. Like that. Okay, so apparently if someone is just looking to contribute to documentation, then probably they may not need to know about testing or something like that. I mean, this document is very good. This is how I got comfortable with getting started. But apparently, so I hear something like, what is a SIG and what is does the SIG doc do? What is a ContribEx? Actually, I joined ContribEx without knowing what is a ContribEx. And then I saw a blog by Feka. Feka interviewed you, and Castellan Feka interviewed you, and you explained what is ContribEx. So that is how I learned what a ContribEx. So like there are too many divergent branches. So I was just sort of thinking like we have a one-page glossary of sorts that has passed to everywhere. Probably, yeah, I mean, I understand the difficulties in putting it into practice, but maybe something we can start with. So like Dims, every time Dims has to point out someone, Josh has to point out someone, go here. So basically we can have that one link.
But they didn't go there to begin with, so why are they going to go to this doc? Like we have a variety of docs that we're like, if you're a new contributor, go here, but people don't go there to begin with. So there's that. But yeah,
only-
we should.
There's only so much you can do, though, right?
Yeah. Honestly, I hate the doc. People, when I got started, people were like, here, go read these docs. And I did. And then I found the things that I needed in this doc and that doc and the other doc also. And then when I started doing things, people were like, oh, how did you do this and that? And I was like, oh, it's in one of the docs. I don't know. It's in somewhere. I very quickly started to ignore the docs and just attend meetings. I find them very frustrating, and I don't believe in my personal ability to fix them.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Yeah. But I love it, son. Why don't you create an outline of what you would like to see, and we'll see what we can implement. That's one way to move forward.
Mhm.
Thank you for the discussion, and we are at 14 minutes left in our meeting, so I like this topic. It's very important. Let's keep talking about it asynchronously. But I think for now we'll move on to other parts of our meeting and see if we can just kind of move through our sub projects kind of quickly, at least. Thank you. Thank you everyone for caring about mentoring other contributors. That's kind of what we do here. At least what we're trying to do. So then Huh? Yeah, the next item on the agenda is comms. I put in a couple of notes here. We do have a draft of guidelines on how to run, like who's going to have access to and general guidelines around Kubernetes IO, our biggest account on Twitter. So both Chris and I have finally reviewed those in an initial round of reviews. So we should have that available for more broad review in the next couple of weeks. Also, Frederico, our blogging lead in the comm sub project, is starting out a new weekly SIG Spotlight asynchronous check-in. So
Cool.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah. That would be good because one of the problems we have with the SIG spotlights is they generally get 90% done.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they get to the final rounds of editing and then somehow get stuck for weeks.
Which we usually check in on them each week in our meetings, but there are a
yeah, the
variety of
problem is that
reasons
the
that
author
happens.
of the spotlight is often not in that meeting. So
Yeah. They get stuck at various
Yep.
points and need to be
Okay.
checked on regularly in order to get over those hurdles.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's at the beginning too. A lot of them die before they even get started.
Mhm.
So it's both ways. But yeah, weekly asynchronous check-ins will hopefully help with that. So we'll have both the meetings and async check-ins on those.
Cool.
Yeah, and that's what I've got for comms. Any questions, comments, and comms? Cool. Contributor documentation. I like.
Well, we just had a long discussion about that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Thank you for putting that in, Josh. See the new contributor discussion above. It sounds like there are some projects that we do want to approach there.
Yeah.
Yes. Sandeep, I
Okay,
look forward to the proposal.
Yeah, for moderation in media, we're fixing some other things. Ben noticed that the owners for Slack Infra were way the heck out of date. I proposed a new set of owners, and really I just need to make a PR.
Very good.
Is there, I guess I can actually bug the relevant people. I can bug our tech leads and find out whether or not there is a way, whether or not we have a group that is just our tech leads. I mean, I suppose there's no harm in putting SIG ContribEx leads in there in general. Because it's not like the chairs are going to go off and do something random. So, yeah. And by the way, I'll say this is the tip of the iceberg. We haven't really audited owners for anything ContribEx owns in some time. And so there's still stuff getting assigned to Jace, for example, who, you know, who knows when he's coming back.
Indeed.
Okay.
Always on the list.
Topper, need to hop into another meeting. Really nice to be a part of this meeting for the first time.
Good to see
Thank
you.
you for joining, and thank you
Yes.
for your suggestion. Look forward to
Yes,
more on
indeed.
it.
Thanks.
Next time.
Yep. But that's all with that.
Okie dokie.
But and I don't think we have anybody here from GitHub management. So
Indeed.
for elections, we've selected the election officers who are then dividing up the responsibility areas for the election and trying to set a calendar for it, which is their first job.
Wonderful.
Out of curiosity, who are the election officers?
How about if I give you a link?
Ooh, even better.
So rather than trying to read them out. So I will do that and we can move on to the next stop. Also put it in the notes. So done with elections.
Cool. And so I think that brings us to the open mic discussion. I wanted to make sure to mention just a couple of things. One is that Google Docs has added Markdown support. Yay!
Has anybody actually used this, particularly used it for pasting, you know, for writing stuff and pasting in between? Because I was trying to use it the other day and had some weird behaviors about it, and I was on a deadline, so I turned it off. But
I only saw posts about it yesterday. So
yeah,
I have not used it.
They enabled it a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
But the problem was, like, actually, you know, particularly like one of the things I've opened in Google Docs is a 5-page long Markdown document. And so if it actually screws it up, I didn't want to have it turned on. But I was wondering if anybody had done a shorter and more replaceable doc. Because the real issue is if you turn on the Markdown support and you use it, can you then paste that document into a text editor and get a good result? I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, I haven't used it at all. Yeah.
Yeah, I think now that it exists, we'll start evaluating it and we'll see how it goes for the community. And we might all be like, this doesn't do what we want it to do at all. But we'll find out. And then the other thing that I wanted to make sure to mention is that this meeting is now being held on a weekly basis, but once every other week at this time and once every other week at an APAC friendly time. So if you are in a time zone where APAC friendly time meetings are good for you, make sure you join the other meeting, which will be next week. Should be on the calendar if you have the SIG ContribEx calendar. I'll try to make sure that we post a reminder about that in the SIG ContribEx channel. Cool. Managed to get to those with 5 minutes left. So additional discussion welcome at this time.
I kind of wanted to raise the topic regarding the SIG ContribEx, the Kubernetes community meetings recorded on YouTube. So initially I noticed that those meetings on YouTube were named as KCS EU, which I posted on Slack as well. And the conclusion was that it was resolved. But yesterday I was watching the Monday meeting of KCSNA on YouTube, and I noticed it's KCS EU again. So I don't know what the issue is there. I think last time it was that the Zoom title was KCS EU, which was causing the problem. But I think Krish fixed it. I do have the link of that message. I've sent it in the chat. But yeah, I just noticed that it was KCS EU again. So I thought of bringing that up.
Can you throw that in the Summit staff channel? Because I don't
Sure.
actually own that, and I kind of wonder if it's somebody's settings, one of the owner's settings when they're starting the meetings,
Sure, I can do that.
or from the calendar item, for example.
Yeah,
Who
the
owns the
calendar
calendar
is
invite?
right. I created the calendar invite and I checked it when this was an issue before, and I'm looking at it on my calendar right now and it is correct.
Okay.
But the Zoom itself, I think I changed that last time, but maybe I didn't. So I reused the same meeting, and so in Zoom, it might be wrong. But there are a variety of things that we could check. So definitely post it in Summit staff. It'll take me a minute to get logged into that, so I'll do it after this meeting. But definitely post it in Summit staff. It'll have to be worked out between me and the YouTube admins and the Summit managers.
And frankly, if we get to the point where we have enough summits that we are running multiple in parallel, then this is going to become a problem.
Indeed.
Yep.
Might not be an easy fix though.
Yeah.
Mm,
And
indeed.
it's always a question of, if it is really hard to resolve, how much effort do we want to put into it? Because
Exactly.
check the viewership numbers on those meetings.
Yeah.
I mean, if the answer is simply we use different meeting IDs, then
Yeah. Well, I'm saying the other potential answer is to just have somebody announce at the beginning of every meeting which group of team it is.
which we usually do anyway.
Yeah.
If there are multiple factors that could cause this, then it might be best for all of those factors to align on like a more generic title or something. We'll have to figure out what
Yeah,
the problems are and what
Right.
the simplest solution will be.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be the other answer, right? Is to somehow get it adjusted so it's just KCS, so we don't have to worry about changing it. And then people
Yeah.
just announce at the beginning of meetings which team it is, because actually we are about to go into a period where we are potentially going to be overlapping between India and North America, assuming that India actually has a KCS team. I'm not sure what's going on there.
And Zoom management is a little tricky. Creating the meeting, the calendar invite is one thing, but managing the Zoom meetings themselves is a little bit trickier.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see where that is. It'll take some looking into. Thank you for bringing that up. Make sure to post it in Summit staff.
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Thank you. And we are at the last minute. Any last minute items? All right. Then I think we have accomplished our purpose for today. A reminder, there will be another one of these meetings next week at an APAC friendly time. And the meeting will happen again at this time in 2 weeks. And I'll see you there.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.